we're going to go into how we begin to protect the spine, all right? Kelly Starrett, is anybody familiar with Supple Leopard? Heard the book? Kelly Starrett is a doctor in physical therapy, and I think single-handedly saved CrossFit from oblivion. And he did that by trying to help people to understand what we're getting ready to go into, all right? Which is protecting the central nervous system, the spinal column, and also how to self-heal the body. So, really, really brilliant guy. And there's a couple of terms that he uses that I like to use, and then I add my own. What he talks about doing first is getting organized. All right? And some of you have heard this before, but we tend to forget it as time goes by. So when we're talking about getting organized, there's two ways to do it, and we're going to do both. I can get organized from the top down, or I can get organized from the bottom up. We're going to start top down. All right? So the first thing I want to do is address my head position. I want my head stacked, sitting on top of the shoulders, using as little muscle as possible, right? I don't want it tilted right, tilted left, in, out, just sitting on top. Now, everybody breathe in deeply and don't exhale. As deep as you can. I want to see chest rise. Now breathe out. All the way out. Push down. Breathe in deeply and hold. So what happens when you breathe in deeply? Your chest rises. What do your shoulders do? Loud. Come on. Yeah, they go back, right? That's called scapular retraction. So for my shoulder to function at its capacity, it needs to be retracted by the scapula. So stuff gets out of the way so I can rotate that arm freely, right? So many people have issues called upper cross syndrome, where we're sitting working at desks all the time and the shoulders are forward. The rhomboids in the scapula, the inner muscles around my shoulder blades, are weak. All right? Now, I don't have free function of my shoulders anymore. Just try to raise your arms in this position and see what you run into. See how you run into a wall here? Okay? Now, retract your scapula and rotate freely. Okay? So, that's the second thing. When I breathe in deeply, what happens to my lower spine when my shoulders come back? And I have a very hyperlordotic curve. It's just something that everybody's different. Neutral is different to everybody. Something you guys have to understand is everybody is a unique snowflake. Neutral to you is not neutral to me. Yes, you're very special. Okay? So when you breathe in deeply, what happens to your lower spine? Do it and notice what happens. It curves. That's called a break. The first break we don't want is in the C-spine. Touch the back of your neck. Slap yourself right there. See what happens. See how you kind of go black a little bit? That's the most sensitive area in the human body. Those of us who have studied martial arts for a long time learn to pay special attention to that spot. Okay? Very, very sensitive. So, I don't want my head in this position, and I don't want my head in this position. If it is going up, if I'm flexing or extending too far, or flexing too far, the upper musculature, the rhomboids and traps disengage. Right? So if I'm looking down, my shoulder muscles will disengage. If I'm looking up, my shoulders will disengage. When we talk about eye position, this will become very important. The second place that we break is in the middle of the shoulders. Okay? Is in those rhomboids. That's called kyphotic. So feel that. Roll your shoulders forward. Okay? This is called kyphotic. So when we're having a conversation and I'm asking you to fix something, it needs to be with that. I don't want to say middle back, lower back, right? It's going to be C-spine, kyphotic, or lordotic. Now, breathe in deeply, shoulders come back. Stick your butt way out. Okay? Feel the tension in your lower spine because you're hyperextended. Okay? That's called lordotic. So there's three places that the spine can break. Okay? C-spine, kyphotic, lordotic. We don't want any. So, in sequence, to get organized from the top down. Head position, breathe in deeply. Now contract your abdominals and watch what happens. So if you watch me from the side, right, I'm going to go. Head position is neutral, shoulders are back. But watch what happens when I engage my abdominals. What just happened to my spine? My shoulder is above the hip, is above the knee, is above the ankle. I'm in a straight, fixed line. Okay? So when I say get organized, this is what I'm talking about. Before you do anything, if I bend over to pick up a sock in the morning, guess what I do? I don't pick up anything, because guess what? If you don't practice this over and over and over again, you will forget when it's most important. Okay? So on your own, top down. Look in the mirror, head position. Exaggerate the shoulders coming back. Big deep breath. You're going to want to do this when we're squatting. And then tight abdominals. Push the rib cage, especially the floating ribs, down into the pelvis and contract your abs as tight as possible. And then see if you can breathe. It's a little bit hard, and this is where people run into some trouble. Like, how do you breathe and hold that contraction? You will learn how to do it. It just takes a little bit of practice. Okay? Just do it a couple of times. Head position, shoulders are back, tight abdominals, squeeze your glutes. You'll feel your quads pop in there, and then screw your feet into the floor, creating torque on the glutes. Can everybody get that sensation?
I feel like my knees are going out. Is that correct?
They are going out.
That's correct.
Yes. Absolutely. Now, so that's top down. Now go bottom up. Torque your feet, screw them into the floor. What happens to the quads? Feel them pop out and the knees open, the hips open. Squeeze your glutes, tight abs, shoulders are back, head position. So practice. Top down, and then bottom up. Does everybody have this? This is how you get organized. This is the beginning of how you protect the spine. And depending on the exercise, I'm either going to get organized from the top down or the bottom up or both. Okay? But this is the process. The next thing we're going to do is go into a hip hinge. This is the beginning of our squat. This is your Romanian deadlift. This is the bent row. Okay? This is the swing. So from here, let's go top down. Head position, shoulders, abs. Spread your feet apart a little bit wider. Okay? Toes need to be going the same exact angle. Torque your feet out. You feel your glutes activate. Now, take your arms and just cross them. All right? Now, drive your hip and only your hip back towards the wall behind you, and only go down until you feel this massive tightness in the proximal end of the hamstring. You're not flexing at the knees. Okay? So the squat is triple flexion. I'm activating hip, knee, and ankle. Flexion to extension. Just like I am jumping, walking, running. Okay? The hip hinge, I'm really only activating two. I am not firing at the ankle. I'm firing at the hip and at the knee. Drive your hip back. Don't go into a squat yet. Don't go into a squat yet. Just the hip. Okay, now let's talk about eye position. Alright? So everybody says look up, look down. Eye position is going to be relative to the exercise you're doing. In some exercises, such as the Romanian deadlift and swing that we're getting ready to do, the eyes will move as my spine moves, because why? What was our first thing on the checklist?
It breaks your neck.
Protect the spine.
Head position. So if my spine, if my chest moves horizontal to the floor, should my head stay up? It should follow. So thus, the whole comprehensive generality of saying look up or look down, completely wrong. Sometimes my eyes are traveling given a repetition like you're getting ready to experience. Sometimes they're fixed up or sometimes they're fixed down. And where you're looking is also dependent on the exercise and also your body. I have, believe it or not, as short as I am, I have a long torso and a femur this big. Okay? My eye position is going to be different than somebody with a torso a foot long and a femur a foot long. He may be able to hold a horizontal or a vertical back position at the bottom of a squat looking straight ahead, where I have to look more down. Does that make sense? Okay? So the hip hinge is the very first part of your squat. It is the integral part of almost every single lift that you're going to do. Okay? So just practice that piece. So as you sit back into your hip hinge, your spine is moving towards the floor. Chest is moving towards the floor. Practice staying with your head in a neutral position. Driving your hip back behind you, and then the hip comes forward. The more I can feel my hip driving back and forward again, bend at the top of the knee, bend at the top of the knee. Your knees are not going to go forward. They stay in place. Your shin is vertical. Only the hip comes back. Feel? So we're trying to target this little spot, guys, that I'm touching. This is the proximal end of your hamstring. Feel it? Get a little more out of it. A little more, a little more, a little more. See how you're braking? Yeah. So get in that habit, guys. If you're at the bottom of your hip hinge and you're still looking up at the mirror, you're braking in the C-spine. Find that spot. Find that spot. See how your knees start to go forward immediately? So the first thing that moves and the only thing that moves is your hip. The knee is not doing anything. So remember, we are regressing. We are breaking up the squat into its components. This is the first component. It's a hip hinge. Keep practicing. Don't look at me like I'm crazy. Keep practicing. All right, now grab your stick. Grab your stick, spread out again. Give yourself a little bit of space. Okay? So there's two movements that are accessory exercises that absolutely must be included into your program. If you're going to use a barbell, you have to do these. One is a Romanian deadlift, the other is a bent row. Okay? All right, and then we're going to go into a swing from here. So, put your feet parallel, a little bit closer than your squat stance. All right? Take your stick and let it hang. Get organized. Okay? And I'll know you're organized when you're looking up. Now, we're going to start this movement at the hip, and the stick is going to slide straight down my legs, and I'm going to move all the way over, horizontal to the floor, and then drive my hip right back into the stick again. The stick is not drifting away. The weight is going to be on your heels, not your toes. This is a Romanian deadlift. Practice. And then we'll go to the bar. Don't bend so much, bro. So more hip. Get that hip way back. Look down. So now your eyes are going to start climbing up and down. And then drive your hip all the way in. So remember, guys, it's not done until you bring that hip to full extension. You are flexing at the hip, and it's not done until you come to full extension. See how much pressure you're putting on that? So more hip. More hip. Bring your feet a little closer, Michael.
Why do you have to bring it to full extension?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, because, that's a good question. Because if we only train to here, guess what I end up doing? Now I've got the tightest psoas in the world. There's so many people I've seen, deadlifters, that can't lock out the weight. Because guess what? They train to here. How many people walk around like this? How many athletic activity happens like this? Only in Sanford and Son does this work well. Okay? We are humans. We walk in full extension and flexion. Everything is triple flexion. Movement is triple flexion, triple extension. If you eliminate parts of that, you eliminate the movement. Keep going.
Is there a correct way of holding the bar?
So when we're deadlifting, you can do a double overhand or over-under. If you're doing over-under, either is fine. If you're doing over-under, dominant hand is over, and then non-dominant hand is under. So it's this. Okay? Or double over.
Okay.
When we're talking about general grip strength, fitness, overall, double over is probably the best way to go. As we're getting more specific into deadlifting, I really recommend going over under. Okay? Just keep practicing that, and then we're going to go to the bar.